Brandon in Denver, Colorado. Brandon.
Hey, how you doing, Brett?
How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Good. What's going on?
Hi. So in 2010, I was admitted on a U visa, and then I adjusted status to a legal permanent resident in 2015.
Right.
And then I committed a theft crime in 2019. And I did have to hire an immigration attorney at that time with a criminal defense attorney. And I ended up pleading guilty to it. Well, I ended up entering a diversion program.
Okay.
Where I plead guilty to the charges and
no sentence.
I get a 2-year deferred sentence.
Right.
And I just had a question about if it's a crime of moral turpitude or a aggravated felony.
It sounds like it's neither. When you get put into a diversion program, generally what happens, it's the opposite of what you just told me. A diversion program means you get sentenced to something, which is community service, a probation, whatever it is, but they never adjudicate guilt. So as long as they never adjudicate, that's what the diversion programs are in almost every, I've never seen a state that doesn't have it that way. So when you get put into a diversion program, they say, we're going to give you a sentence, which is community service, probation, pay a fine, whatever it is. Stay out of trouble for 2 years or a year or whatever it is. Come back. We're gonna drop the charges. But there was never a day that you went into court and you were found guilty or you had to plead guilty.
Yeah, I actually have to plead guilty for this.
Okay, well then I would need to look at your disposition, because the definition of a crime, all right, because then maybe it's not a diversion program, but let's figure it out, okay? Because the definition of a crime. The definition of a crime for the under the Immigration Nationality Act is you were found guilty or you pled guilty and a sentence was imposed. So if you were found guilty and a sentence was imposed, then that's a crime. So if you have one of the two, then it's not. As I said, usually you get a sentence but not found guilty. You're telling me you were found guilty but you didn't get a sentence. I don't know what state this happened. What state was this?
This is in Colorado. So basically,
okay, so I'm not an expert on Colorado penal code.
Okay.
But what I would suggest we do is have a consultation. But to answer your second question, assuming it's diversion program, I'm almost certain, unless there's something strange in the Colorado law, I'm almost certain that it is not a crime for immigration purposes. Let's be 100% certain. I want to look at that disposition. But in terms of the law for theft offenses, I'm going to tell you what the law is anyway for immigration. Okay, for theft offenses. When you are found guilty of a theft offense and you are sentenced to you have some sort of sentence to a punishment, all right, some punishment given, fine, jail, whatever it is, restitution. Now you've committed a crime, and now as an immigration lawyer, we have to figure out, is it a crime of moral turpitude or is it an aggravated felony?
Correct.
It is a crime of moral turpitude if the sentence, doesn't matter how much time you actually served in jail, but if the sentence that you were given was less than a year. So for example, if the judge says probation for 5 years, well, you didn't go to jail. It's a crime of moral turpitude. If the judge says you're sentenced to 364 days in jail, and that's all you served, and that's what you served, it's a crime of moral turpitude. If the judge says 1 year in jail, it's an aggravated felony. If the judge says 1 year in jail, but I'm giving you time served after a month, so we're going to suspend the other 11 months, still an aggravated felony because you were sentenced to 1 year. It doesn't matter how much time the judge gave you to not actually serve. That's the theft laws for aggravated felonies and crimes of moral turpitude. Now, sometimes a theft offense can be considered a fraud offense. Sometimes it's theft by fraud. So if it is a theft offense by fraud, there's different rules. And
no, this wasn't a fraud.
Okay, well, let me just tell for everybody else so I can go through my rest of my spiel. So if it's theft by fraud, then if it was determined factually in a court of law that the fraud was in excess of $10,000, then it's an aggravated felony. If the fraud was less than $10,000, it's not. So when an immigration lawyer looks at theft offenses, we're looking at time served, sentence imposed, was it a fraud, how much was lost.
Okay.
I don't know I've given you all my knowledge. I don't know Colorado Penal Code off the top of my head. I can tell you generally, a diversion statute means it's not a crime. Let me double check. All right, hold on. Thanks for watching. For more Brad Show Live, like and subscribe to our YouTube channel.